get this book. It's awesome.
I'm Stefan Baumann. I want to welcome you to another video. Today I talk about, getting an idea and laying it down. Now, I know AI is the whole thing out there, but that's a whole nother video. If you want to learn about AI, it's a whole nother video in my view of it. What I have done for you today is kind of show you my process of laying in a painting. Now, I'm not the kind of artist that does my AI thing. I'm not the artist that sits down and takes a photo and photoshops it and moves things around. I'm not that artist that has to have a coloring book of lines that I trace on and then paint it on the left-hand corner and work it from right. I am a powerful, passionate painter. I paint what I see and feel in a moment's notice, and I try to capture that feeling and movement. And I go through changes. I'm my own AI guy. And if you want to see how to create something from nothing, and I'm not saying that I just, this particular example is about wolf. And I did a painting for a snowboard company, and they wanted a wolf howling in winter. And so I started off with a really good idea and it got bigger and bigger and ideas changed and I'm constantly always shifting and moving. I paint and I teach this in my class. Talk about nuance painting, how the brain stimulates ideas. It's kind of AI, except it's AI in your own head. So you can actually see how I go through the thought process and I kind of explain it to my students in my book club. So if you don't have my book, The Field Guide to Plein Air Painting, I suggest you get it because a lot of that information's in here. And if you understand how a painting is put together, which is in this book is fabulous. It's 400, look at this, 400 pages of information. And this is information that is not found anywhere else. You could watch all my videos and it won't make sense. But if you open that, and the good idea is that after you get the book, you become part of my book club, which is actually where you get to see videos like this, because this is actually a group of my students that have bought my book, became part of the book club, which is free if you buy the book. You get an invitation every month and you get be part of that. And I discuss all of this stuff to you guys. So sit back and relax. If you want to get my book and follow along, you can go to stefanbaumann.com. And like I said, watch this. I'll see you on the other side. Basically, I did this painting that I just finished for the snowboard company. And I already have one snowboard that has my painting on. They asked me to do a wolf. They wanted to know, well, how do I start a painting? And so basically, I get into, okay, I've got to paint a wolf. Yeah, I don't chase wolves. Yeah, I let other people who do that do better. And so I turn to the internet and I get a file on wolves and I kind of, yeah, I start off this particular wolf at this point is completely out of my head. This is what I want the wolf to do. And at this point, I wasn't sure if I was going to do a timber wolf or a white wolf or a Siberian wolf. They hadn't really told me yet, but I just decided, okay, this is my initial drawing. And I start with this totally abstract with gaining, that's where I wanted in the middle central focal point area. Then phase two is that I start chunking it in. This is the initial drawing. Now, we talked about chunking in. So this is my initial drawing. This is my mountain back here. I have some waterfalls back there, a couple of trees. This is the initial wolf that you just actually saw sitting with all the stuff around it. Waterfalls, trees, again, all out of my memory, all out of, my mind. Yeah, and these are progressions as I go. Again, playing around with the landscapes and waterfalls, and I have the wolf here sitting on the edge of the rock. I'm still kind of pleased with it. At this point, I would move things around till I feel more comfortable with it. And then I start actually like committing myself to the details. So I actually see here from my initial idea, I dropped out all the other waterfalls and stuff because it confused the issue. And here again, too, with artistic license, you're allowed to manipulate and change the landscape to make the painting better as we go along. I'm dropping things out, I'm adding things in, I've changed the angle of the mountain. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just kind of keep on working on it. But notice I have the key light up here. I've got the lighting effect. I mean, it's going to go on a blackboard, which would be really dramatic, but you can kind of see the progression of the painting and the ideas. And, as I started working more and more on it, but, the center focal point, the eye magnets, everything is all based around getting the viewer around. And, I think it
Mhm.
was, pretty successful. They loved it. They loved it, even down to
Uh,
the highlights hitting the steam coming out
correct.
of the,
Yeah.
the
The thick tree on the left side, with it being dark at the top, it helps to keep you in the painting. I mean, that's a really strong shape to have that leads right out of the picture. But because you've darkened it at the top, it doesn't draw you out as easily as it could if you had left it more of the local color, like towards the bottom or
Mhm.
where it's near the wolf's head. If it was that color at the top, it would take you out of the painting.
Yeah. And the thing is, I learned something about this too, because, the center focal point in a painting could have usually a lighting effect, but when you do animals, it tends to be their eyes because we have to kind of feel like we're safe or not. So as creatures of nature, we check in with the eyes. I realize that when wolves howl, their eyes are closed, and so they're usually closing their eyes when they howl. And so I was like, oh wow, I didn't notice that. I had to look at a lot of wolf photographs to actually see that. So, and then another important thing that all of you need to realize too, and you just experience this is that, when your spouse comes walking in and she goes, that looks kind of funny, she's right, or he's right. It's like, because they're the eye of the public. They're the ones who are actually going to see it. All of you who think your wives have or spouses have no opinion that's worth anything and get out of my studio, they're the ones that actually will point out things that you ought to know. Okay.
There's a couple questions about that painting in the chat box.
Okay.
Mahan asks, how did you make the fur look so furry?
Here again, too, is that the shadow areas have no detail in them. The highlight areas have no detail in them. The transition color is where all of this texture is happening. If you notice, the highlights are actually, and I had to watch out so that the painting didn't look like, every individual hair, which you see on a lot of wolf paintings and bear paintings. And so you kind of have to get that when you're looking across at fur, as the fur turns away from the viewer, those areas actually don't have a lot of detail in them. They're actually like silhouettes. You might have a little bit on the outside, but this area in here and this area that's up in here are relatively flat. There's not a lot of fur that's sticking out, but areas that transition where the shape starts to turn, right there you would have most of your textures. And it is a game you play. You wipe some of it out, you kind of push some of it in. The key to doing the fur, if we could blow it up like right up in here, is that the shadow colors are warm. Yeah, so I dig in with warm colors into these areas. And then as they come out, it makes a cooler color using my cool colors and actually start painting the outer edges of this fur coming out. And they're more like masses. And so it's not like each individual hair. It's like where we come up underneath there, we actually see some hairs, but the actual plane of the hair is actually relatively flat. Otherwise, the whole thing starts to look like, little scratch marks. So it's not an easy technique, but I've been painting animals for a while. And you'll notice that where the light's hitting, especially in areas that are white, that you don't see hairs in them. There's relatively flat.
What somebody mentioned, you're a fan of asphaltum paint. How and where do you use it? And I was just going to give them a page number about that, unless you wanted to address it.
Well, let's address it real quick. Asphaltum is also transparent brown oxide or transparent oxide brown. Either way, you can get that through Michael Herring. Um, it's a brown substitute for burnt umber. I hate burnt umber. It sucks. When it dries, it gets flat. Asphaltum is a transparent oxide color. Originally was created out of the shells of mummy. So when they covered mummies with tar, the English people would dig up these mummies and take the tar and grind it down and make paint out of it. And you see it in a lot of the old masters' paintings of Sargent and Moran and Bierstadt. You see this wonderful brown golden tomb. But eventually Egypt got kind of upset that their tombs were being invaded to be ground down to, their mummies were ground down to make paint. So they kind of stopped the practice. And it was not very stable. And so it's very fugitive. So they stopped making it. Now they make it transparent brown or the asphaltum, or they call it mummy brown. It's available. You have to buy it via Amazon. Michael Harding's got it. Once you get into those colors, you'll stop using burnt sienna, you'll stop using burnt umber. It's a beautiful transparent color. There's a lot of colors that are standard colors, and we'll get into that someday about how you're being taken to the cleaners by art companies wanting to make money. But as you can see, painting is a creative process. It's like cooking. If you throw the ingredients in and you taste it, you go, oh, it needs something. What is it? And you start digging through the refrigerator looking for the ingredients. That's painting. You don't want to start off with an idea, fill in the lines. That's a coloring book or a cartoon. In fact, when we look at the Sistine Chapel, that's a cartoon. It has dark lines on the outside and everything's painstakingly filled in. There are artists that start off on the left-hand side of the screen and they go and they go and they just copy, the photograph rendering. And, if they had to make a change in that process, they would be stuck because they're not creative enough to think in the bigger picture. So if you're one of those artists, let's try to have you think differently. The instructions for nuanced painting is in the book. The instructions on how to work with the process of this is in there. It's not a how-to book. Here, paint this copper vase and paint it with burnt sienna and burnt umber and all that. It's not a step-by-step how-to Walter Foster thing. This is information you can use. You read this book, it will change the way you see everything today, the first chapter. So what I want you to do is order the book, sign up for my book club, be part of that. Be part of my coaching program. I've got one on Patreon. You can call me direct. I don't care. Just stop watching videos thinking you're going to get something for nothing. It's a passive activity that doesn't do you any good. You got to get your hands dirty. You got to get your hands into the paint and shuffle it around and come up with ideas and break the surface. So turn off this video and stop watching videos. Get my book, but mainly go out and touch the world with your creativity and stop watching other people doing your job. There's no secret out there. Well, there is a secret. It's in my book, but it is really a secret because most of those artists don't talk about it. But stop watching videos and get to painting, because there's a lot of work out there that you need to create to change the world. So until next time, happy painting. Take care. I'm Stefan Baumann, and I would love to introduce you to a new book that I just wrote on plein air painting. After 40 years, I finally sat down with one of the best authors that I could possibly imagine for this project and put together everything I know about painting outdoors. And this isn't just an outdoor painting book. No, these are techniques that you can bring into the studio, and they apply to watercolors, acrylics, gouache, and oil. You will be amazed at what you will learn with every turn of the page, every paragraph. We have worked through my videos, my information, my books, my blogs, and brought it all together. And over 2 years of editing, we brought it down to just the facts. This painting book has over 400 pages and almost 500 illustrations. If you see my videos and if you read my blog and you follow me on YouTube, you know that there's a lot of information. There's a lot of things you don't know that you don't know. I'm amazed at the quality of this book, the pages. It's a field guide. It's a book that you would take outdoors with you and paint on location. It's been organized so you could find your way through my keys. This book explains 40 years of teaching and knowledge one-on-one. All the information that I possibly know about painting is in this book. So run, don't walk, and order this book today.